tell, then you see the road. I'm out to my soul into the sides whenever the smoke clear out of my face and my picture perfect.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the third part of What If BEN10 Meets Jujutsu Kaisen. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Shinobi 360 on fanfiction.net. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Stare, thought Nobara as her eyes fell on the three boys, looking at each of them closely. Megumi looked away to his left side, most likely out of nervousness. Yuji looked at her with his mouth open, most likely due to a mixture of confusion and curiosity. Ben also maintained eye contact, and his slightly forced smile still remained. I'm Itadori Yuji. I'm from Sendai. Greeted Yuji with a smile as he pointed to himself. And I'm Tennyson Ben. I'm actually from the U.S., but I've been living in Sendai for a while now. Greeted Ben. Fushiguro Megumi. Said Megumi simply as he turned to look at her. Nobara frowned in response. Kojosaki POV. Yuji's facial expression immediately turned into that of a cartoon character with a slightly uncanny smile and an even more uncanny posture as his head moved from side to side in a slow, but wobbly fashion. He looks like a potato. He's definitely the type that ate his own boogers as a kid. Ben's facial expression changed into a grin, with his eyes moving rather suggestively towards Nobara. He too also moved in a similar motion to Yuji. He looks like the kind of guy to stare at his own reflection in awe of himself. Definitely has an ego, plus he's a foreigner to boot. Though, I'll admit, his Japanese is surprisingly really good. Megumi moved in a similar motion to Ben and Yuji, but his expression was completely different from theirs. His eyes looked even more uninterested than before, and his mouth, though closed, was rather amusing due to how it would extend to the ends of his face. And only a name here. I can't stand high and mighty dudes. I bet he likes setting oil-slicked gulls on fire. End POV. Nobara sighed in disappointment as her head fell to the side. I always get stuck with unfortunate circumstances. Said Nobara. She took one look inside. Said a disappointed Yuji. Her people skills are impressive. Said Ben sarcastically. Are we going somewhere from here? Said Megumi as he looked toward Satoru. Satoru chuckled in response. We do have all four of you together. Not to mention, two of you are from the countryside. Said Satoru as the four teens looked at him. So of course we're going on a tour of Tokyo. Grinned Satoru. Tokyo. 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 We love Tokyo. Shouted Yuji and Nobara in excitement as they hugged a smiling Satoru from both sides. Huh? Said Ben and Megumi in confusion. TDL. I want to go to TDL. Shouted Nobara. Idiot. TDL's in Chiba. Let's go to Chinatown, sensei. Shouted Yuji. Chinatown's in Yokohama. Shouted Nobara. Yokohama's part of Tokyo. Don't you know that? Look at a map. Shouted Yuji. The hell? Quit spouting nonsense. Shouted Nobara. I will now announce our destination. Said Satoru, causing both teens to stop arguing and kneel on their right legs. Roppongi. Shouted Satoru. Roppongi. Shouted Yuji and Nobara as they looked at each other with wide smiles, starry eyes and faint blushes on their cheeks. Meanwhile, Megumi looked at them with annoyance while Ben looked at them with a look of confusion. The five arrived at their destination. It was in front of a large building at least 3 stories high. It had a dark purple aura surrounding it. You liar! Shouted Nobara as she gritted her teeth in anger. She stood to Satoru's right, who was in front of the 4 teens with a smirk. "This isn't even Roppongi!" shouted Yuji as he covered his eyes in frustration. He stood to Satoru's far left, and to Megumi's left as well. Ben stood to Megumi's right. While Megumi had a neutral expression to hide his embarrassment, Ben had an understanding smile on his face. "You were toying with us country folk." Nobara pointed at Satoru accusingly. Imagine a cemetery where the sky was suddenly pitch black. But in the middle of it was a parting that looked rather colorful with a mixture of blue and purple. "There's a big cemetery nearby." The double whammy of that and an abandoned building brought out a curse. Explained Satoru as the setting changed back to reality. "Who does he think is responsible for the rice he gets to eat, huh?" shouted Nobara as she spun around while still throwing a tantrum. "So they really do pop up more often around graves?" asked Yuji as they all ignored Nobara. "The issue isn't the cemetery itself. It's the fact that people associate cemeteries with fear," explained Megumi. "Oh, it was the same for schools, too, wasn't it?" asked Yuji. "Hold up. He didn't even know that yet?" asked Nobara as she now turned to face the 4 of them. "To be honest," began Megumi before recounting to Nobara the events that led to Yuji consuming one of Sukuna's fingers. "He swallowed a special grade cursed object," shouted Nobara in disbelief. "Gross. Unbelievable. That's so unsanitary and disgusting," shouted Nobara as she stood in front of Satoru with her hands crossed in a manner similar to one ready to fight. "No way, no way, no way, no way." She comedically scooted further away from Satoru by a few meters. "What?" said Yuji with mild annoyance. "I agree with her," said Megumi. "Not cool guys," said Ben with disappointment. "I want to know what all of you are capable of. Just think of this as a field test," said Satoru. "Nobara, Yuji. You 2 go exorcise the curse inside that building," said XLR8 Satoru with his hands behind the back of his head. "Gay," said Nobara through gritted teeth. "Huh. But I thought only curses could exorcise curses, right?" asked a confused Yuji. Satoru then turned back to look at him. "I can't use jujutsu yet. You're basically half a curse already. There's cursed energy flowing throughout your body," said Satoru as he pointed at Yuji. "Though controlling that energy isn't something you can learn overnight, so use this." Satoru handed Yuji a broad blade sheathed in a brown scarp. The 3 boys' mouths widened in astonishment. "It's the cursed tool, Slaughter Demon. It's a weapon imbued with cursed energy. It'll work on curses, too." Yuji held up the now unsheathed blade. It looked like a short butcher's knife with 2 vertical holes at its base. Below it was a white bandage and the part before its handle had black fur. With a smile, Yuji put the blade back into its sheath. "Gotta admit, that's pretty cool," said Ben in approval. "It's lame," said Nobara dismissively before walking forward and loosening her belt before tightening it again. Yuji began to follow him suit. "Oh, one more thing," said Satoru, causing Yuji to stop and turn back to look at him. "Don't let Sukuna out. If you use him, you'll get rid of all the curses nearby in a flash, but you'll also drag everyone around into it," advised Satoru. "Got it. I won't let Sukuna out," said Yuji with a thumbs up. "Hurry it up," shouted Nobara, who had gone far ahead. "Yeah, yeah," replied Yuji as he ran forward. "Go on, now," said Satoru. "Good luck you two," encouraged Ben. "Thanks Tennyson. But we'll be fine," shouted Yuji with a smirk. He then knelt down in order to open the garage door. Once it was open, Nobara ran inside and Yuji walked in before closing it. He then ran inside as well. The 3 males sat on a short but long stone concrete that could make for a chair. Megumi sat at the left, Satoru sat in the middle, and Ben sat at the right. You know, I'm kinda wondering you didn't let either me or Fushiguro accompany them. Said Ben as he looked at Satoru. You already proved yourself by beating Sukuna, so you can afford to sit this one out. And Megumi's still recovering, so there's no need to stress him. Reasoned Satoru. But someone needs to keep an eye on Itadori, right? Asked Megumi. True. But the one we're testing this time is Nobara. Said Satoru. She's quite the character, isn't she? Said Ben a bit sheepishly. The same could be said for Yuji. Said Satoru as he placed his index finger on his head. He's missing a few up here. He has no hesitation when it comes to killing these things that take the form of living creatures, albeit bizarre-looking ones, to try to kill him. And it's not like he's been familiar with curses for a long time like you, Megumi. Or has he ever fought the monsters and aliens you have, Tennyson? Megumi looked at Ben in surprise but didn't say anything since Satoru was still speaking. This is a boy who used to live a normal high school life. You've seen plenty of jujutsu sorcerers, even those with talent, give up in frustration because they couldn't conquer their fear or disgust, haven't you, Megumi? Megumi didn't respond. So today, I want to confirm how crazy she is. But Kujisaki has experience, right? Little late for that now, isn't it? Asked Megumi. Curses are born from human minds. So their strength and numbers grow in proportion to the population. Began Satoru. Do you think Nobara understands that curses in Tokyo are on a different level than those in the countryside? You've got a point there. But for her sake, I hope she doesn't underestimate these things that I only just started fighting them a few days ago, but I can already tell that they're pretty persistent, and not to mention smarter than they let on. The moment you let your guard down, they get the drop on you. And if you're unlucky, that might just be your last mistake. Said Ben with a grave tone as he reminisced how a cursed spirit nearly attacked him in human form at Yuji's school. Images of Megumi getting injured, and Yuji nearly getting eaten flooded his mind, causing his body to tense slightly. That's a pretty accurate assessment for someone who just started fighting curses recently. Said Satoru. I'm full of surprises. Said Ben. Yeah, it is. Far too accurate if you ask me. Said a wary Megumi. What do you mean, Fushiguro? Asked Ben. Despite Itadori's consumption of Sukuna's finger being a rather unfavorable outcome, you handled yourself very well against the curses we fought for your first time. You even beat Sukuna in combat, and even though it was a weaker version, it doesn't undermine how impressive that is. Your mannerisms, your decision-making, they all show signs of someone with extensive experience in using their abilities. And with what Gojo-sensei just said, you fought beings just as dangerous if not more, than curses. Observed Megumi. What are you driving at? Asked Ben, though he already knew to that question. How is it that you got these powers without anyone knowing or hearing about it? And these foes that you've faced? Who are they, and how have I never heard about them? Quite frankly, how has someone like you managed to keep themselves concealed for so long, especially from Jujutsu Tech? Asked Megumi. For a moment, silence was all that stood between the trio. Guess I was going to get asked sooner or later. Said Ben with a sigh. I promised you that I'd tell you whatever you need to know. Sorry I never did so till now. Megumi looked at Ben with narrowed eyes as he awaited an answer. Guess now's a good time as any. Said Ben with another sigh. He then looked Megumi straight in the eye, as he knew the weight of what he was about to say. Listen, Fushiguro. There's no easy way for me to say this, but the answers I give you now many only leave with more questions than when you asked. You might not believe it at first, but I want you to know that everything I'm about to say to you is the truth and nothing but the truth. I also want you to know that there's a lot to be said. So much in fact that I can't say it all at once. I'm going to need you to bear with me as I tell you the most important parts, because then, I'm sure you're still going to have a lot of questions. Are you asking me to employ a suspension of disbelief? Asked Megumi. More like asking you to wait until I'm done explaining before you ask more questions. Said Ben. Very well. I will withhold any further questions until you are done with your explanation. Said Megumi as he agreed to Ben's terms. Thanks Fushiguro. Said Ben with sincerity. Alright, story time. I'm looking forward to it as well, Tennyson. Said Satoru with a smirk as he clasped his hands together. Don't you already know about how I got my powers? Asked a perplexed Ben. I do, and that's exactly why I'm excited to hear it again. It's definitely one of the most interesting tales I've heard in my life. Said Satoru. Heh, can't say you're wrong. There's definitely nothing like it. Said Ben sheepishly in agreement. Alright then, I'll start from the beginning. Began Ben. I was on a summer road trip with my grandfather and cousin. During our first night out on the road, we set up camp at a park. I walked out into a nearby forest and saw what looked like a shooting star. Except it wasn't a shooting star as it headed right towards me, like a comet. Once it crashed into the ground, I walked towards the crater and saw a pod. Inside the pod was the omnitrix. Megumi's eyes widened in surprise while Satoru's smirk widened. I walked into the crater to get a better look, and out of curiosity, I reached out to hold it. Then, the watch just flew onto my wrist and wouldn't come off. Like it was glued to me. Ben raised up his left hand to demonstrate as he showed the now exposed omnitrix. When I kept trying to get it off, I accidentally activated the dial. Then out of curiosity, I pressed it down and then turned into an alien for the first time. I call him Heat Blast. As you can imagine, I was scared out of my mind since I turned into what I thought for sure was a monster. I was on fire, but it didn't hurt in the slightest. It felt almost as normal as breathing. I got carried away though and started a forest fire. Megumi gave Ben a look that said, "Are you serious right now?" While Satoru simply snickered. After a mild understanding, I was able to convince my cousin Gwen and my grandpa Max to help me put out the fire. After we met up and I changed back, we were thinking of what to do with the watch since it wouldn't come off. We wouldn't be able to come a conclusion anytime soon as not long after alien robots attacked us. They were after the watch, but thanks to a few new transformations in my family, I was able to stop them. Ben grinned as he said this. Since then, we knew that more people would come after the watch, so we decided I might as well start using it to help out others and fight bad guys like a superhero. It was a pretty bumpy road, juggling summer vacation while having to deal with secret societies, mad scientists, bounty hunters, alien warlords, mutants and magic sorcerers just to name a few. But I couldn't have asked for better partners to kick butt with. Said Ben with pride. I've had the Omnitrix for about 6 years now, but you've heard me call it the Ultimatrix. So I'm guessing you're wondering why that is. Megumi nodded in response. About a year ago, 2 of my worst enemies teamed up to get the Omnitrix. They used my cousin and best friend as a bargaining chip, leaving me no choice but to hand it over to them. Though I was without my powers, I was able to get my Gwen, Grandpa Max, and my best friend Kevin to help me stop them. I had to destroy the Omnitrix by making it self-destruct so that Vilgax wouldn't be able to use it to take over Earth. Luckily for me, Albedo, my second enemy, has the exact same powers as I do. Only his watch is called the Ultimatrix. I swiped it from him by threatening to do the same thing to it like I did to the Omnitrix. With it, I was able to beat Vilgax. Megumi looked awestruck by Ben's words. Even Satoru looked evidently surprised. Trust me when I say that there's a lot more adventures than that. Said Ben with a smirk. I'm sure you're also wondering how Gojo knows so much about me. For now, let's just say we both have a mutual friend. Said Ben. For a moment Ben remained silent, giving Megumi free rein to ask his questions. How many aliens can you turn into? And how is it that no one else has ever heard of you? Or your foes? Asked Megumi. Right now, about 63. If you're wondering why that is, a lot of the transformations in the watch are locked. That's the number I currently have access to. And on how no one's ever heard of me. That's an answer that I'd like to tell you when Itadori and Kujisaki are around. You both deserve to hear it at the same time. Though Megumi did seem somewhat unsatisfied with that response, he eventually came to terms with it and agreed. Speaking of Itadori and Kujisaki, they've been in there for a while now. Wouldn't hurt to check on them. At least to make sure that they're okay. Said Ben as he got to his feet. However, just as he began to stretch his hands, flying out of a window was a cursed spirit. It was rather short in stature, and the entirety of its body, save for its hands, legs, head and mouth was covered with brown hair. Its limbs were dark green, its eyes bulged out of its sockets and was closed and its teeth were exposed. It was missing its right hand. Both Ben and Megumi were greatly alarmed by this. Megumi rose to his feet with his hands outstretched and Ben placed his right hand on the omnitrix dial. However, before either boys could act, the curse suddenly disappeared in a form similar to decay with a black color. As a result, the purple aura surrounding the building disappeared as well. Nice. She's crazy all right. Said Satoru with a smile. That sounds so wrong. Said Ben before sighing. But as long as they're okay, it might not be so bad after all. The day was gradually coming to an end as the sun began to set. The crisis had been averted, and the life that was previously in danger had been saved. A young boy with a blue short-sleeved shirt and gray trousers stood in front of a house and waved at Ben, Satoru, and Megumi as the three stood at the street across from him. "I live over here." "Thanks again," shouted the boy. Ben and Satoru waved back in response with a smile. Sitting far away from the trio on a flight of stairs was Nobara and Yuji. Both had a look of boredom on their face. "Did you know I get into a foul mood when I'm hungry?" said Nobara. "When are you not in a foul mood?" said Yuji in a low tone so that Nobara wouldn't hear him. "Good Joseph!" shouted Satoru with his left hand raised up as he, Ben and Megumi walked towards them. "We made sure the kid got home." Yuji and Nobara got to their feet, both adopting fighting stances. "Now shall we go grab some food?" suggested Satoru with a grin. "Steak!" shouted a grinning Yuji. "Sushi!" shouted a grinning Nobara. "Leave it to me!" shouted a grinning Satoru. "And what about you guys?" asked Satoru. His question directed towards Ben and Megumi. "I'll have a steak as well," said Ben with a smile. He and Satoru then looked at Megumi, who was using his phone. Feeling ignored, Ben, Satoru, Yuji and Nobara began to walk away, much to Megumi's surprise. "Okay, let's go," said Satoru. "Oh, I forgot about my biggest haul of the day," said Nobara as she walked far ahead of the boys and Satoru. "Hey, you, go fetch my things," she said to Yuji. "Huh? Why should I do it? I thought we were even," asked Yuji. "We won thanks to my cursed energy." "Got a problem with that?" said Nobara in a confrontational manner. "What about my raw strength?" countered Yuji. "Your monstrous power from eating weird SHT?" said Nobara. "It's not just that," countered Yuji. "Right, Fushiguro? Tennyson?" said Yuji as he turned back to face the two. Megumi looked annoyed while Ben had a small smile. "Huh? What's the matter, Fushiguro?" asked Yuji. "Nothing," said Megumi as he looked away from Yuji. "He's just mad that he didn't get to help out," said Ben with a smirk, causing Megumi to look at him with annoyance, but he made no effort to deny his claim. "What a child!" taunted Nobara as she placed her hand on her mouth in order to conceal a laugh. Yuji however wasn't as subtle as he began to laugh heartily. Ben then looked at each of them respectively before his smile became broader and warmer. He hadn't been in this world for long, but he was already getting used to it, albeit gradually. And although he knew in his heart that the new friends he had seemingly made would never replace the ones from his world, he was grateful for meeting them as well. Because although he didn't know it, the moments he shared with them started to make him feel more at home. Perhaps, one day, this could truly be his new home. Whenever that day may be though, he knew one thing for certain. He was going to protect it with everything he could, and cherish it as well. The sky was completely cloudy as it began to rain. Ben, Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara all stood outside a wide two-story building that was gray in color. In front of them was a man with black hair, curved black eyebrows, sunken cheeks, and glasses. The man also wore a black long-sleeved suit over a button-down shirt and a black tie, black pants, and black shoes. This was Kiyotaka Ejichi, their current instructor. Our window verified the cursed WMB 3 hours ago. Began Kiyotaka with his hands behind his back and his body arched to the side as he stood in front of the teens. All 5 of them looked towards the building. Once 90% were successfully evacuated, they made the call to seal off the center. Behind the 5 was 2 ambulance vans with some of its officials outside as they also looked towards the building. Citizens within a 500-meter radius have also been evacuated as well. Ejichi, question. Began Yuji as he raised up his left hand. What's a window here? A window is a member of Jujutsu Tech who can see curses. They aren't sorcerers, though. Explained Kiyotaka. Oh, okay. Said Yuji. Let's continue. Began Kiyotaka. Detainee Block 2. At present, 5 detainees remain there with the cursed WMB. If this cursed WMB is the type that metamorphoses, we predict it will become a special grade cursed spirit. Special grade, thought Nobara. Yuji then stood in front of Ben who stood beside Nobara and Megumi. Hey, so I still don't really understand what special grade means. Asked Yuji, which caused Nobara and Megumi to sigh, the former of disbelief and the other of disappointment. Hey, don't be like that, guys. I don't know much about this stuff either. Said Ben in Yuji's defense. Then allow me to explain it so even idiots can understand. Said Kiyotaka, causing Ben to frown. First there's grade 4, a wooden bat is enough for them. Grade 3, if you have a handgun, you can rest easy. Grade 2, it'll be a close call with a shotgun. Grade 1, even a tank may be insufficient. Then there's special grade. Let's say you might be on even footing if you carpet bomb it with cluster bombs. That's real bad. Said a distressed Yuji. Megumi and Nobara looked worried while Ben looked serious. Normally a jujutsu sorcerer on par with the cursed spirit would take on the mission. On a day like today, that would be Gojo-sensei. Explained Megumi. I see. Said Yuji before turning back. So where is Gojo-sensei? Asked Yuji. Away on business. Replied Megumi. Huh? Said a confused Yuji. He's not someone who should be loafing around at school in the first place. Explained Megumi. Flashback. Satoru was seen leaving through the entrance of the school. With his back turned to Megumi, he waved at him. Don't expect any souvenirs. Said Satoru with a smile. Flashback end. Unfortunately, we're constantly short-handed in this business. Explained Kiyotaka as he turned to face the 4 of them directly. You'll often have to undertake missions beyond your power. He then shifted the bridge of his glasses before looking at them directly. The current case, however, is an abnormal one, and most urgent. Do not fight under any circumstances. Warned Kiyotaka. If you encounter a special grade, your options are to either run or die. The teens were taken aback by this. Sorry, but that doesn't apply to me. Began Ben in a stern tone. I get that these things are very dangerous and that you're just looking out for us, but I've fought worse, so I can hold my own against them. Ben then turned to face the trio. If it comes down to it, I'll fight it by myself and make sure you guys and the hostages get out safely. Did you hit your head or something? How could you possibly hope to fight a special grade and not die? Said an annoyed Nobara. He's done it before. Said Megumi coolly. Huh. Stop spouting nonsense too, Fushiguro. He's right, I have. Said Ben, interrupting Nobara. When Itadori ate Sukuna's finger for the first time, I had to fight Sukuna, and won. Pretty convincingly too. The confidence in which Ben said this caused Nobara's and Kiyotaka's eyes to widen in surprise. I see. How is it that I wasn't informed of this? Said a surprised Kiyotaka. Gojo-sensei must have left that out purposefully. Replied Megumi. Why would he? With all due respect, that's not important right now. Said Ben, interrupting Kiyotaka. My apologies, you are correct. Although you are to strictly ensure the verification and rescue of any potential survivors, with this new piece of information I've received, I hereby permit only Tennyson to engage the special grade in combat, and only if it can't be avoided. Said Kiyotaka. I'm pretty sure this is just as important as saving the people still in there. So that no one else gets hurt. Said Ben adamantly. Very well then. Said Kiyotaka with a sigh. Excuse me. Shouted the voice of an elderly woman behind the teens. Once they turned back, they saw up to 4 men in suits blocking a woman of average height who seemed to be in her mid to late 40s. She had a brown ponytail-styled hair, black eyes and mild wrinkles on her cheeks. She wore a cream sweater underneath a brown jacket opened in the middle. Blue jeans and black shoes, along with a blue shopping bag around her left hand. Excuse me, where's Tadashi? Asked the woman with evident distress. Stop. Stay back. Shouted one of the men. Please stay back. Shouted another. Is my son Tadashi all right? Her voice cracked as she asked this question. Yuji's lips were pursed together, giving him an appearance of someone about to break down crying. Though Ben's expression was more subdued, evident sadness could be seen on his face. Before either teens could react further, Kiyotaka stepped in front of them. Please calm down. Hey, stop it. Let go of me. Please stay back. It's dangerous. Let me through. She's a guardian who was here for a visit. Explained Kiyotaka while still facing forward. Please step away. There's a possibility that someone has spread poisonous gas throughout the center. Said Kiyotaka. We cannot share any more details at this time. The woman looked absolutely devastated, as if her entire world had just been destroyed. No. She said before closing her eyes with both hands and falling to her knees. Why? Her voice cracked even further as she was at the verge of crying. Why is this happening? Fresh tears began to stream down from her eyes to below the inside of her hands. With heavy hearts, Yuji and Ben looked at the woman with great sadness and sympathy. As they clenched their fists, however, a wave of determination washed over them as their expressions became serious. Tennyson, Fushiguro, Kojisaki. Began Yuji as he cracked his knuckles before turning to face his teammates. We're gonna save them. Ben nodded in response. Of course we are. Said Nobara with similar conviction. Though Megumi didn't say anything, his mind was already made up as well. The teens, alongside Kiyotaka, were at a hallway section atop the building. They began to walk towards the entrance while Kiyotaka stayed behind. Be careful. He advised before bringing his left index and middle finger to his mouth. I'll put up my veil. Emerge from darkness, blacker than darkness. Purify that which is impure. Chanted Kiyotaka in a low tone. As he said this, dark clouds in the form of a dome began to enclose itself around the compound. This caused Yuji and Ben to stop walking as they looked on in surprise. It's becoming night. Shouted Yuji in excitement. It's veil. There's a residential area nearby, so this barrier conceals us from the outside world. Explained Megumi dryly. Neat. Said Ben with a sly smile. More than that. It's incredible. Said Yuji with a beaming smile. Ignorant. Said Nobara in a dismissive manner. Demon dogs. Said Megumi as he clasped the 4 fingers of his right hand on top of his outstretched left hand. Suddenly, a black mist began to form around Megumi's shadow, before eventually materializing into the white demon dog. The now summoned Shikigami then let out a howl, causing Yuji to look at it with awe. He'll let us know if the curse gets close. Said Megumi. Oh, I see. Said Yuji before walking towards the dog and kneeling in front of it. Good boy, good boy. We're counting on you, okay? Said Yuji with a smile as he rubbed the fur around its neck with both hands. Megumi and Yuji stood in front as they opened the door, while Nobara and Ben stood behind them. The demon dog stood in the middle of the 4. As the door was opened, the dog walked inside. Let's go. Said Megumi, to which the 3 teens would comply. They ran inside a hallway that emitted a bright orange light, with its walls similar to that from a factory. Wait! Shouted Megumi as he came to a stop and held his right hand so that his teammates and Shikigami would do the same. Once the 3 stopped, they looked towards where Megumi was facing, and what they saw caused them to gasp in surprise. They were looking at the ceiling of the hallway, but all that they saw was darkness. What is this? Asked a puzzled Nobara. What's going on in here? This is a 2-story dorm, isn't it? Asked a equally puzzled Yuji. Cc, calm down. It's a maisonette. Said Nobara, facing Yuji in an attempt to reassure him. Though it was evident from the sweat drop on her cheek that she too was nervous. But none looked more unsettled than Megumi, whose eyes were still glued on the non-existent ceiling. No, it's not. Thought Megumi through teeth gritted due to fear. He too, also had a sweat drop on his cheek. It's the deployment of an innate domain due to cursed energy. It's my first time seeing one this big. His eyes immediately widened as he came to a sudden realization. Where's the door? Asked Megumi as he looked towards the 3 teens. They then looked behind each in response. Huh? Said a confused Yuji, as to his surprise, the door was no longer there. It's gone. Exclaimed Ben, now slightly worried. How? We just came in through here, didn't we? Asked Nobara, now panicking as she pointed towards the direction where the door once was while facing Ben. What do we do? What do we do about this? Chanted Nobara, and Yuji began to walk in a circle opposite of each other while swaying their hands side to side. It'll be fine. Said Megumi, causing the 3 teens to look at him. Standing beside him was the white dog. The dog remembers the scent of the entrance. Explained Megumi. Oh, my. Said Nobara, and in unison with a soft voice. Both teens cupped their hands together and placed it below their chins as blushes appeared on their faces. Good boy. Have some jerky. Have all the jerky you want. Shouted Nobara with enthusiasm as she stood at the left side of the dog with her neck arched backwards and her arms outstretched. Yuji sat down at the right side of the dog, began to ruffle its fur playfully, much to its delight. Take this seriously, guys. Said an annoyed Ben. You're both way too calm. Said an annoyed Megumi with similar annoyance. You really are dependable, Fushiguro. Said Yuji with a warm smile, catching both Megumi and Ben off guard. Thanks to you, we'll be able to rescue people and save ourselves, too. His smile had now turned into a grin with his eyes closed as he pointed his right index finger towards the dog. He's right, you know. Way to go, Fushiguro. Said Ben, as he had now regained his composure with a warm smile on his face. Megumi looked away from the trio, before closing his eyes in indignation, and opening them again. Let's keep moving. Said Megumi as he began to walk away from them. Though they were surprised by this reaction, the teens didn't question it, and followed suit with Megumi's request. By now, all four were walking across another section of the hallway. With Megumi and Yuji still in front, Nobara and Ben behind them, and the dog in the middle. They would come to a stop behind a wall that led to another hallway, with the dog coming forward before Megumi would eventually follow suit. Once both of them made sure that there was nothing or no one nearby, they continued walking, and so did their comrades. The teens had entered into a different section of the room. Its walls and floors were gray with a mixture of ash, and it lacked any light source to illuminate it. Upon taking in his new surroundings, Yuji's eyes immediately fell on a point of interest to his left, causing him to run towards it. Yuji came to a stop once he directly in front of it, and what he saw caused his eyes to widen and his mouth to let out a gasp of shock. Laid out on a wall in front of him was a man who had dark-colored buzz-cut hair and long thin eyebrows. He wore a light blue jumpsuit with a pocket on the left BRST and a name tag above the pocket, over a white-colored shirt. His eyes, though open, were completely lifeless, and within good reason. A trail of BLD could be seen from below his slightly opened mouth. His lower half was completely gone, leaving a shallow pool of BLD on the spot where his legs once were. To his right was a grayish-yellow skull along with a curled spinal cord around it of the same color. "Atrocious," said Nobara with her hands clasped together as she and the other teens were also greatly disturbed by the corpses. "That's 3 people, right?" Megumi asked to no one in particular as Yuji walked further towards the dismembered corpse before kneeling beside it. Yuji then tugged the right shoulder of the corpse's shirt as his eyes fell on the name tag. The name written on it was Okazai Tadashi. This caused Yuji to gasp through gritted teeth in shock as he remembered their encounter with the mother from outside. "Let's take this body back," said Yuji nonchalantly. "Huh?" said a confused Nobara. "It's that woman's son," said Yuji as he let go of the corpse's shirt. "But," began Nobara softly as she held her left hand across her chest. "His face isn't too badly mangled. His mother won't accept if we tell her he's dead, but we don't have a body," interrupted Yuji, his eyes still glued on the corpse. "You're right. Let's carry him along while we find the others. Once we do that, you 3 get out of here, while I take out the special grade," said Ben with a solemn look. "No," said Megumi. "No," said Ben in surprise as he looked at Megumi. Yuji did so as well. "I have no intention of risking my own life to save someone I had no intention of saving in the first place," said Megumi, now agitated. "What do you mean by that?" said Ben as he walked towards Megumi until he stood in front of him with a stern look in his eye. "This is a juvenile detention center. Jujutsu sorcerers are granted access to all information about the scene beforehand," explained Megumi. "This Okazaki Tadashi hit a little girl on her way home from school while driving without a license. It was his second offense of driving without a license." Ben and Yuji's eyes widened in shock upon hearing this revelation. "I know you're some sort of superhero, and you're stuck on saving people no matter what. But what are you going to do when someone you saved kills someone else in the future?" Ben had initially turned back to look at Tadashi's body, albeit with a reluctant look. But upon hearing Megumi's words, his expression hardened, and he turned back to face the teen once more. "I'll answer for my actions when the time comes, but I don't leave people behind no matter what," said Ben boldly, causing Megumi to grit his teeth in frustration. "Cut it out. Christ, what are you guys doing?" shouted an annoyed Nobara in a bid to stop a potential confrontation between the two. Their eyes, however, still remained glued on one another. "The 3 of you are idiots. Think about the time and place if you dash, a black hole similar to that of a shadowy mist would appear below Nobara, causing her to fall inside it before she could finish her sentence." "Kujisaki," said Ben with worry as he and the other 2 boys were perplexed by her sudden disappearance. "No way. Demon dog should have sensed the curse," thought Megumi with his mouth wide open with worry. Upon looking to his left side, he saw his dog Shikigami impaled through the wall, with its eyes sunken into its skull, and BLD on its mouth. This caused Megumi to visibly tense up even further. "Itadori! Tennyson!" shouted Megumi, causing the two boys to look at him with shock. "We're running. We'll search for Kujisaki-la. The eyes of the three teens widened at the same time, as suddenly, standing in front of them was a tall but fairly muscular humanoid cursed spirit. It was primarily white in color, and had a ponytail parted in 4 different directions across its face. 2 of them which were at the center of its face had its eyes attached to them, which were 4 in number, and rather large compared to that of a human, with black pupils. Its teeth were completely exposed, giving it the appearance of constantly grinning. And because of how much wider its teeth was compared to that of a human, it made its overall countenance even more unsettling. Its chest had a smaller but noticeable silver on it. Its fingers were long and rather crooked, giving it an appearance of reddish, decayed flesh. Its lower half consisted of a dark cloth wrapped around its waist and below in the form of a drill which was floating off the ground. There's no mistake. It's a special grade. I can't move, thought Megumi as his teeth were gritted together and his eyes were widened. Move, began Yuji in his thoughts with a similar expression to Megumi. Move. 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 The memory of his now deceased grandfather laying to Yuji his final words came to his mind. Yuji with shaking hands, unsheathed Slaughter Demon with his right hand before letting out a battle cry as he swung the blade with the back of his hand towards the neck of the curse. Upon making contact, a loud spurting sound similar to that of water gushing out could be heard, but why that was caught the 3 teens by surprise. Yuji's right hand flew behind the trio before implanting itself on the ground with Slaughter Demon still being held by it. Upon doing so, the blade broke, causing the severed limb to fall on the ground, staining it with BLD in the process. Itadori, said a surprised Megumi. Ben looked at Yuji with his mouth wide open in disbelief. Huh? Said a confused Yuji as he looked at his now severed right hand as it spewed out BLD. Megumi could be seen free falling from a great height with his hands outstretched. His surroundings were dark brown with narrow walls filled with pipelines on all corners. "New!" shouted Megumi as he crossed his hands into an shape. In a manner similar to how the white dog appeared, another Shikigami materialized above Megumi. It bore the appearance of an owl-like bird with large orange feathered wings with white trim, as well as a white mask on its head. It then proceeded to latch its claws on Megumi's shoulders, slowing his descent as it began to fly downwards. Upon reaching ground level, it dropped Megumi on the ground gently, who in turn used the momentum from the drop to slide forward with his right hand placed forward on the ground, before running forward. "Don't die on me, Itadori, Tennyson and Kujisaki," thought Megumi. Flashback. The 3 teens looked at the curse apprehensively. Their bodies tensed as they anticipated another attack. "There's no other way out of this but to fight," said Ben before turning to face Yuji and Megumi. "Fushiguro, Itadori. Go and find Kujisaki. You should be able to track her with your demon dogs." Yuji maintained eye contact with Ben as he sheathed the broken remains of Slaughter Demon back into his scarp. "I'll take care of this on my own." Both boys' eyes widened in surprise upon hearing Ben's words. "Even if you beat it, you still can't exorcise curses," said Megumi. "I'll figure something out." "Get out of here!" Ben's eyes widened as he saw the curse take in a deep breath, with a faint yellow and black aura tainting the air around it. It then spat a small but condensed energy blast that was of the same color towards Yuji and Megumi. This caused Ben to immediately position himself directly in front of them before activating the omnitrix and slamming down the dial, causing the familiar green light to cover him as the blast flew towards him. Upon making contact with Ben, however, it dispersed as what stood in the place of Ben caused both the boys and the curse to gasp in shock. Standing in the place of Ben was a silicon-based alien made of extremely durable crystal. His body is overall indigo, with several dark lines and spots. His hands and face are magenta, and he also sports 6 magenta shards on his back, 2 on his chest, and 1 on the top of his head that resembles a horn. His face consists of a mouth and 1 large green eye at the center. On his chest was the omnitrix symbol. Chroma Stone! Shouted the Crystalcipian as he took a powering up stance while his body glowed a bright rainbow color, indicating that he absorbed the attack. Go now! Ordered Chroma Stone. Present time. Itadori, why are you still here? Asked Chroma Stone as he looked at the bewildered curse. I want to help. You can't exorcise curses, but I can. Said an exasperated Yuji. You're already hurt. I'm not letting you fight. Said Chroma Stone indignantly. Hey, Sukuna! Shouted Yuji as he cut off the bandage wrapped around the handle of Slaughter Demon and wrapped it around his right hand. If I die, you die too, right? This caused Chroma Stone to turn back to face Yuji, thus letting his guard down. What are you? Chroma Stone would immediately be grabbed by the face with the right hand of the curse, and tackled to the ground at a corner of a room. While laid out on his back, Chroma Stone's single eye would widen in surprise as he saw that the cursed spirit was now standing on 2 legs which were also white in color, and well defined in muscle tone. In its hands were long strands of black cloth, most likely the remains of its drill appendage from earlier. With a light chuckle but sadistic chuckle, the curse took a top mount position on Chroma Stone's chest, and began to punch him with both hands across the face. Yuji's mouth was initially wide open in disbelief, but he managed to regain his composure, albeit slightly, and gritted his teeth instead. If you don't want that, then help me out. Shouted Yuji, almost panicking. Suddenly, red eye and a mouth appeared below the right side of Yuji's right eye. Nope. Began Sukuna. Even if the parts of me inside of you die, there are 18 other fragments of my soul. Still, irritatingly enough, I don't have control of this body. Chroma Stone's attention was now directed to Sukuna's words, thus making the only resistance he made to the cursed spirit's continuous assault being to cross his hands over his face. If you want to SWCH, go ahead and SWCH. But once you do, I'll kill those 2 brats before the cursed spirit can. Then I'll go for that woman. She's a lively one. I'll have fun with her. The sadistic tone in which Sukuna said this caused Yuji's eaves to briefly widen. I'm not going to let you do that. Declared Yuji. I bet. Taunted Sukuna. Your friend isn't doing too well out there. If you only focus on me, he's going to die. Just as Sukuna said this, however, Chroma Stone's body began to glow once more. He then stretched his hands forward, causing an ultraviolet beam to hit the cursed spirit square in the chest, sending it flying backwards until it crashed into a wall. Not by a long shot. Declared Chroma Stone as he got back to his feet. This initially surprised Yuji, who eventually regained his composure and ran towards Chroma Stone's side. Itadori, what were you thinking? You know how risky that is. Said Chroma Stone. I do. But it might have been our only way to beat that curse. Reasoned Yuji as the aforementioned curse put both its hands at its sides. It held the exposed pieces of the wall caused by the crater formed it crashing into it. Once it got back to its feet, it looked at the 2 teens and began to shift its gritted teeth side to support side. You didn't need to do that. Especially not when you have me. Argued Chroma Stone. I couldn't just leave you behind knowing that you can't exorcise curses. Even if you're pretty strong, I can't bear the thought of you getting hurt or worse if you were left on your own and something went wrong. Countered Yuji. That's not gonna, Chroma Stone trailed off. As he looked at Yuji. The conviction he emanated with his stance and his expression told Chroma Stone that he had already made up his mind on the matter, and that there was no deterring him. How could he tell this? Because the ferocity in Yuji's eyes felt familiar. Like he had seen it in someone before. The truth was he had seen it in himself. There's no convincing you otherwise, is there? Said Chroma Stone with a sigh. Though Yuji didn't respond, Chromastone already knew the answer to that question. He then looked back to the cursed spirit, which still had its eyes fixated on them. "Why hasn't it attacked us yet?" asked Yuji. "It's probably waiting for us to make the first move. Probably doesn't want any more surprises after I just absorbed that attack from earlier," reasoned Chromastone. He then clenched his fists tightly as he now knew what he had to do. "Change of plans. We're fighting it together," said Chromastone, causing Yuji to look at him in surprise. "Really?" asked Yuji in disbelief. "Yeah. I'll go first, but I'm going to need you to follow my lead. Think you can keep up?" asked Chromastone cockily as he looked at Yuji. Yuji's surprised expression then turned into a smirk. "You got it," said Yuji in approval. "All right then," began Chromastone. "Let's do this." This was the prompt the cursed spirit was waiting for, as it immediately began to run towards the duo, who in turn began to run towards it, only with a battle cry as well. Once they were inches apart, the curse jumped into the air with its right arm cocked back for a downward Superman punch. Chromastone and Yuji leaped into the air directly below the curse. Chromastone's left hand was reeled back for a punch, while Yuji's right leg was stretched forward for a kick. The two teens would lunge at the cursed spirit, with Chromastone taking the lead. Chromastone would attempt a right cross, causing the curse to sidestep to its left in order to avoid it. Chromastone would then follow up with a left hook, causing the curse to duck backwards. Running from behind Chromastone, Yuji would then jump high into the air, right before letting out a battle cry as he did a front flip into a downward axe kick with his left leg, causing the curse to jump backwards. The impact of the attack caused the ground beneath Yuji to crack, but he paid no mind to this as he looked towards the curse with frustration. The curse snickered in response. Equally frustrated, Chromastone would stretch both hands forward before shooting an ultraviolet blast towards the curse, causing it to jump to its left to avoid it. Upon chuckling in order to taunt Chromastone for missing, the curse was pelted with more blasts, to which it still managed to dodge by weaving from side to side while running forward. Once it was closer to Chromastone, the curse cocked its right hand back before throwing a right cross, to which Chromastone dodged by jumping into the air to its surprise. Chromastone proceeded to turn his body while still in mid-air in order to face the back of the curse. Once he did so, he shot another energy blast to which the curse narrowly avoided by jumping backwards. With a battle cry, Chromastone increased his descent downwards and proceeded to punch the ground with his right fist. This caused a huge tremor across the room that was immediately followed up with a landslide that went rapidly towards the curse. Before it could hit it, the curse jumped high into the air in order to avoid it, grinning as it saw the annoyed look on Chromastone's face. Seeing this as an opportunity, Yuji stepped forward before throwing the sheathed slaughter demon with his left hand, causing the curse to weave to the right to avoid it while still in mid-air. With a loud battle cry, Yuji ran forward before jumping towards the curse. As he approached it, he angled his body upside down so that his PP was coming towards its face with his legs wide open. Caught off guard by this maneuver, the curse was unable to stop Yuji from wrapping his legs around its neck tightly. With a grunt, Yuji arched back further, as if about to perform a backflip, and proceeded to throw the curse towards Chromastone through his legs wrapped around its neck. This sent the curse flying face first towards Chromastone, who proceeded to strike it with a powerful right punch to the face. The force behind it was so great that it completely destroyed the wall it crashed into, thus sending into a completely different room. This one was dark green in color, and there wasn't much of a floor within it either, as the floor that existed in this room was vertical in length. It was also so narrow that just a few steps to either sides would see you falling off into the lower section, which was far below the room itself. Fortunately though, this was just the middle section of the room, as to the far ends of both sides, more wider flooring could be seen. With an irritated grunt, the curse got back to its feet, as it had landed on the middle side of the room. It then saw Chromastone and Yuji come through the hole in the wall that the former had made. Both Yuji's and Chromastone's eyes were fixated on the curse, whose eyes in turn was also fixated on them. The three combatants would continue to glare at each other for a few fleeting moments. Upon noticing that the curse was most likely waiting in anticipation for them to make the next move again, Itadori looked towards Chromastone. I'll admit, that was a pretty good punch. But how come you didn't use those energy blasts from earlier? They looked like they had more of an effect on it. Said Yuji. Chromastone doesn't have much energy to start off with. I have to absorb some in order to use it. Explained Chromastone as he maintained eye contact with the curse. Unfortunately for us, the special grade seems to have wised up from earlier, so it's not using any energy blasts this time around. And with no energy to absorb, the curse began to flex its fingers in anticipation. I can't use my powers to the fullest. Yuji's eaves widened in surprise upon hearing this. About a drawback. Said Yuji with sympathy. Yeah, tell me about. The curse immediately lunged towards Yuji, its left hand arched back as it proceeded to try and punch him. Before it could, Chromastone managed to push Yuji forward, thus positioning him behind the crush, and took the blow instead by blocking it with the back of his right hand, much to the curse's surprise. Don't you know it's rude to butt in when others are talking? Taunted Chromastone. Gritting its teeth in annoyance, the curse would throw a right cross, causing Chromastone to hold the outstretched limb with his left hand, rotate his body clockwise, and land a devastating backhand to the face with his right hand. The blow sent the curse stumbling back, leaving it open to an iron shoulder from Yuji's right shoulder. Also known as Iron Mountain Lean, or by its original name, Tetsuzenko. It's a martial arts technique from the martial arts style, Bajikwan. This sent the curse stumbling forward this time, leaving it open to a right cross from Chromastone. This caused it to turn until it was facing Yuji directly, and stumble towards him. Yuji would then land a high kick to the face with his right leg, before landing a straight punch to the face with his left hand. This caused the curse to fly back to another right cross from time to the back of the head, causing it to fall forward. Before it could fall face first to the ground, Yuji bent backwards almost completely until he was able to use his left hand to do a one-hand backhand spring, all the while using his right leg to land a kick to the jaw of the curse, sending it flying upward slightly. Chromastone proceeded to jump into air, turn the curse with his right hand until it was facing him directly, before throwing a left hook which was followed with a straight right punch that sent it flying backwards. Not allowing it to crash into the wall this time, Chromastone flew behind the curse before clasping both hands together and swinging them to its back in a manner similar to a baseball bat. The blow caused the curse to backflip as it flew upwards, right before crashing into the ceiling with its back in depth into it, and its arms outstretched. Now that's what I call a home run. Taunted Chromastone as he levitated in the air while looking at the curse. Gritting its teeth viciously as it was now enraged, the yellow and black aura from before began to taint the air, causing the room and the body of the curse to shake violently. Chromastone's single eye widened as he knew what was about to happen next. Falling down from the ceiling wall, the curse levitated in the air as the yellow energy began to build around its body until it eventually took the shape of a dome. With a loud shout, the energy blast engulfed the entire room in a manner similar to that of a massive explosion. An awestruck Yuji was unable to move as the energy blast was about to hit him. Luckily, Chromastone flew towards him before grabbing him and flying down to the room below, shielding him as he absorbed the excess of the blast. The ground they once stood on was rendered to pieces, thus making all three combatants to change rooms once more. Carrying Yuji bridal style as he held him close to his chest after landing on the ground, Chromastone decided to take in his new surroundings. For starters, the flooring he stood on was similar to the one above them previously. The differences came from the room being dark blue in color, having a large body of water at the empty spaces that didn't make up the floors, and having large pillars placed at all corners of it. "You okay?" asked Chromastone. "I'm fine. Thanks," said Yuji with gratitude. With a nod, Chromastone gently placed Yuji on his feet. "More importantly, what happened just now?" asked Yuji. "I'm guessing our little combo from earlier must have made it mad, so it figured it'd wipe us out with one blast," explained Chromastone right before holding up his now clenched left fist and looking at it. Unfortunately, it seems like it forgot that I can absorb energy. As he said this, his body began to glow the familiar rainbow color from before. So that means you can use your powers better now? Asked a hopeful Yuji. Yeah, but I've got a better idea. Suddenly, the curse landed inside the water with a heavy thud, causing it to splash across the room. Upon seeing Chroma Stone and Yuji, it gritted its teeth in frustration over the fact that they survived. It seemed like it was about to lunge at the duo, but held itself back from doing so once Chroma Stone stepped directly in front of Yuji. Itadori, when I say now, you go on ahead and attack. I'll tag in when need be, said Chroma Stone in a hushed tone while still looking at the cursed spirit. Huh. But I thought you wanted to, began Yuji in a similar hushed tone. Just trust me, interrupted Chroma Stone, causing Yuji to go wide-eyed. For a few seconds it seemed like Yuji was seriously contemplating Chroma Stone's words. But not long after he said those words, however. Okay, said Yuji with conviction, thus letting know that he backed Chroma Stone's decision fully. Thanks, said Chroma Stone with gratitude as he even looked back at Yuji, albeit slightly. With his focus now placed back on the curse, Chroma Stone then stretched out his hands, causing it to gasp in surprise. Go again. Upon seeing the ultraviolet glow wash over Chroma Stone's body like before, the curse visibly tensed up. Now! Shouted Chroma Stone with a battle cry. Yuji ran from behind Chroma Stone, causing the curse to look at him with surprise. It almost didn't dodge the punch sent its way by Yuji. Sorry, not the plan. The ultraviolet glow died down, which Chroma Stone followed with crossing his arms confidently. The curse's attention was primarily on Chroma Stone, as it didn't know what he was planning. Despite this, it would dodge all of Yuji's blows sent his way almost effortlessly. Yuji would attempt a left jab, causing the curse to step back slightly to dodge it. He would then follow it up with a right elbow cross, causing the curse to weave to the left. A right roundhouse kick would nearly make contact with its face had it not ducked down slightly. It was even more fortunate to jump back in order to dodge a sudden axe kick from that same leg. Yuji would then fall on his left hand that he placed on the ground as he would attempt a sweep kick with his right leg. The curse would end up jumping over this attack. Using the momentum from the failed sweep kick, Yuji would get back on his feet and turn in order to attempt a high roundhouse kick with his left leg. The curse would block this with the side of its right hand, causing it to grin. However, it would end up letting its guard down through this act, as it was immediately kicked in the chin by the same left leg, causing it to arch its neck backwards. Dropping his left leg, Yuji would immediately tighten the bandage wrapped around his right hand, before loosening it. As the curse arched its neck back forward, its face was immediately splattered with blood from Yuji's severed arm. This managed to temporarily blind its vision, leaving it open to a high side kick to the back from Yuji's left leg. After regaining its footing upon initially stumbling forward, the curse was enraged, and didn't bother to properly clean its eye as it sent a wild swiping attack to Yuji's legs with its right hand. Yuji would manage to dodge this by doing a front flip over the curse and landing behind it. Cupping both hands together, the air was once again tainted by the familiar yellow and black energy from before. Forming a condensed ball of energy, the curse turned towards Yuji before getting back to its feet and thrusting both palms forward, with the left palm above the right one. This sent the energy ball towards Yuji, causing him to gasp. But before it could hit him, Chroma Stone stepped in front of Yuji in order to absorb the blast by allowing it to hit his chest. This caused both Yuji and the curse to gasp in shock. Now! Shouted Chroma Stone. Though initially confused, Yuji suddenly realized what Chroma Stone was asking him to do, and once again, he ran forward from behind Chroma Stone. This time, Yuji used his right leg to kick the water upwards, causing it to splash on the curse's face. Because of this, it was unable to see Yuji jump into the air to drop kick it, causing it to stumble backwards. I see. Began Yuji through his thoughts as he got up to his feet to land a left cross to the curse's face, before following it up with a right side kick across the face as well, causing it to turn backwards. I think I get it now, Tennyson. Yuji proceeded to run up the back of the slightly disoriented curse before jumping off it. Making sure he was positioned directly above it, Yuji, as he began to fall down, wrapped the inside of his severed right hand around the neck of the curse, and proceeded to slam it face first to the ground, causing a large splash of water to follow suit. Both combatants got back to their feet, but Yuji did so first. This allowed Yuji neither curse in the face with his right leg, causing it to stand back up properly almost immediately. Yuji would follow with a left cross, arching its face to the left, before following up with a sweep kick with the back of his right leg, causing it to trip forward. Before it could fall, Yuji would perform another iron shoulder, this time to its positioned upside-down face. This would send the curse flying and skidding across the water, causing a mini splash each time it hit the water. It would eventually come to a stop once it was a few meters away from hitting a wall. Getting back up a bit groggily, it looked at Yuji with killing intent, gritting its teeth wildly. It would then proceeded to take a quick deep breath, the now yellow air around it indicating that it was charging up another attack. It would then shoot a large energy blast towards Yuji that would fly towards him instantaneously. Before it could hit its target, however, Chroma Stone would step in front of Yuji and absorb the blast once more, this time with his outstretched left palm. The curse could only look on in shock. "Why you wanted me to fight it by myself?" Yuji would look at Chroma Stone with awe as he stretched out his right hand to Yuji while still facing the curse. As his expression changed into a more resolute one, Yuji would then take Chroma Stone's hand with his left, grabbing it firmly. With a nod, Chroma Stone would then spin around while still holding Yuji, before throwing him towards the bewildered curse. Due to the strength and speed behind the throw, Yuji would immediately hit his target in the form of a drop kick to the gut, causing the curse to spit out purple blood in pain before being sent flying towards the wall. It's so you could absorb its energy blasts when it uses them. Yuji got back up to his feet as he saw the angered cursed spirit still buried into the wall. With a blood-curdling scream, the curse jumped high into the air, with both hands clasped together and arched back in a manner similar to a hammer. Once it was directly above a startled Yuji, it brought its hands down with enough force to make the ground quake violently, and the water to splash across all corners of the room. Yuji had managed to dodge this attack by performing a front roll with his left hand, much to the frustration of the curse. With a battle cry, the curse tried to claw Yuji's face with its right hand, causing him to step back to dodge. As it aimed another slash towards his legs with its left hand, Yuji vaulted over it by doing an aerial somersault, thus landing behind it. It would then try to lunge towards Yuji with its outstretched right hand, causing him to grab the hand with his left, before falling to his back and kicking the curse off him, sending it to the air. Arching its body while in mid-air until it was positioned properly, the curse then spat out another energy blast from its mouth, this one much more powerful than the last. Once again, Chroma Stone would jump in front of Yuji, this time levitating in front of him as he stretched both hands to absorb the blast. After doing so, he landed on the ground with enough force to cause the water to splash across the room once more. This made Yuji to run around Chroma Stone by his left to reduce how much of the water he was sprayed it. As the cursed spirit landed back on the ground, it began to tremble in fear as it saw Chroma Stone's body began to glow the familiar ultraviolet light. It had just now realized what his plan was all this time. "And so that you'll have enough power." The curse jumped into the air in an attempt to dodge Chroma Stone's upcoming attack. Before it could get any higher, however, Yuji, who had anticipated something like this, hovered above the cursed spirit, as he had jumped before it. With its eyes widened in surprise, the curse was unable to block or avoid the double axe kick to the face from Yuji that sent it flying back down with a heavy thud. Yuji had managed to land at the right side of the curse, and was a few meters away from it. He had landed just in time, the look of complete horror on its face once its eyes fell back on Chroma Stone. With his hands outstretched, and his entire body glowing brightly, Chroma Stone couldn't help but smirk upon seeing the despair that had consumed the curse. "Gotcha," said Chroma Stone right before unleashing his charged-up blast. The attack was so powerful that its light engulfed the entirety of the cursed spirit's body, and it was so large that it destroyed the wall behind it. Once it died down, Yuji's eyes widened in shock upon seeing that the entire upper body of the curse was gone. As its lower half fell on its knees, what remained of its body was gradually being reduced to ashes as purple flames engulfed it. To do something like this. The fact that the curse had been defeated in such a manner could only mean one thing. You did it, you actually exorcised it," said Yuji with surprise that was immediately replaced with amazement. "No, we did it," said Chromastone with a warm smile that initially took Yuji by surprise, only for him to smile as well. The two teens would continue to look at the remains of the special grade being reduced to ashes by the purple flames that engulfed it. Whereas Yuji bore a look of amazement and pride over their triumph, Chromastone bore a look of curiosity as he was quite uncertain about the details that led to their victory. "I know Chromastone can dish out energy blasts far stronger than when it was absorbed, but part of me still thought that all it would do was weaken it. Either Chromastone is my new ace against curses, or there's a lot I don't yet understand about them," thought Chromastone as he looked at what was once the cursed spirit, now reduced to a small flame ember which eventually died out. However, what Chromastone saw in the place of the extinguished flame caused his single eye to widen in surprise, as it was none other than a finger of Sukuna, placed gently on the floor. "Would you look at that? A souvenir," said Chromastone jokingly as Yuji also looked at the finger with surprise. "The finger was inside that thing?" "How?" asked a bewildered Yuji. "Don't know," began Chromastone as he picked it off the ground with his left hand. "Though my guess is that it was probably as tough as it was to beat since it ate it." Yuji blinked in confusion. Why yeah, that could have been it," said a slightly reluctant Yuji. "Well, whatever it was, we need to take it back to Jujutsu Tech," said Chromastone. "Right," said Yuji, causing Chromastone to nod in approval. He then offered the finger to Yuji. "Huh?" asked a confused Yuji. "You hold it for now. I don't exactly have any pockets as Chromastone," said Chromastone. "Oh, okay," said Yuji, slightly stammering before accepting the finger with his left hand and putting it inside his left pocket. "Now, how about we get out of here?" asked Chromastone, to which Yuji nodded in response. Chromastone then wrapped his right hand around Yuji's waist before levitating off the ground, and proceeding fly several feet into the air before flying through the hole in the wall they made from above. As both boys had now returned to the room where they first encountered the curse, Chromastone gently dropped Yuji to the ground before landing on the ground gently as well. "Alright, we're back where we started. Now, there's just one more order of business," said Chromastone as he looked around the room. "Finding the remaining potential hostages?" asked Yuji. "No," said Chromastone. "Huh?" asked a confused Yuji. "There are no hostages, Itadori. They're probably all dead," said Chromastone gravely, causing Yuji's eyes to widen in shock. "And if I'm not mistaken," Chromastone then pointed towards the corpse of Tadashi and the skeleton beside him. "Those are the only ones whose bodies weren't rendered to dust," said Chromastone. "How can you be so sure?" asked Yuji. "Right behind you," began Chromastone as he pointed to the back of Yuji. Once both boys turned to look at what Chromastone was pointing at, Yuji's eyes widened in shock. There was a very shallow pool of blood that had dried up due to a rather scorch mark on the ground it was on. Those scorch marks probably mean that the last person was burned to death, without a single trace. Yuji then grit his teeth and clenched his left fist in frustration. "So was this mission all for nothing?" asked Yuji as his voice began to break. "Did we come here just to fail?" Yuji shouted as he turned to face Chromastone directly. The Crystalcipian had no expression on its face as it simply glared at Yuji. "No, we didn't," began Chromastone in a tone of mild uncertainty, as if he was struggling to convince himself as well. "Itadori, when it comes to saving people, we can't always save everyone. And that's one of the hardest things to accept about the job." Yuji's grip on his left fist tightened even further, as it seemed that he was struggling to accept Chromastone's words. But that's exactly why we have to find the strength to make sure that they didn't die in vain, said Chromastone boldly, causing Yuji to look at him with the corner of his right eye. To make sure that no one else has to go through what they did. Yuji's eyes fell to the floor as his expression became downcast. Silence was all that stood between the two boys, as neither said a word to the other or made a sound. What now? Said Yuji with sorrow as he looked back at Chromastone fully. We take them back. Make sure they get to their loved ones, said Chromastone as he turned to point at the corpses. Give them closure. Yuji's somber expression immediately turned into a determined one. All right. Said Yuji. But before we do that, there's something more important we have to deal with. Said Chromastone before walking past Yuji. What is it? Asked Yuji. Fixing you up. Said Chromastone as he picked up the broken remains of Slaughter Demon before walking towards Yuji's severed hand. Huh? Said Yuji in confusion as Chromastone picked up the severed hand and began walking towards Yuji. Wait, Tennyson, I'm not sure a surgery's gonna, began Yuji. I'm not talking about a surgery. Interrupted Chromastone, surprising Yuji. I have an alien that can heal your hand, and another that can fix your sword. Explained Chromastone, leaving Yuji speechless. Once you're patched up, we can leave. Chromastone then offered the remains of Slaughter Demon to Yuji, to which the latter looked at the shattered blade with reluctance. Okay. Said Yuji with a sigh before accepting it and putting it back into the sheath around his waist. But I wonder though, said Yuji as he brought out Sukuna's finger from his left pocket. If eating the finger I have with me could help me heal. Theorized Yuji as he brought the finger towards the severed hand. I don't know much about that to give a real opinion about it, but I can say you should be careful. Advised Chromastone. Yeah, you're probably. Suddenly, a mass of flesh began to form around Yuji's hand before it took the shape of a hand, thus restoring his right hand. It wouldn't stop there however, as a mouth would form within his palm and consume the finger. Gah! Shouted Yuji in surprise before clenching his stomach. He bent forward slightly. The familiar black markings appeared on Yuji's face. What the? Shouted Chromastone with shock as he took a step back. His once widened single eye narrowed as the moment the black markings disappeared, the familiar red eye and mouth appeared in its place below the right side of Yuji's right eye. How curious. Began Sukuna. I will admit, perhaps I was too quick to dismiss you earlier. You've definitely piqued my interest now. Chromastone grit his teeth in apprehension as a response. Wouldn't be the first mistake you've made. Said Chromastone with hostility. Oh, and you've got bark too. Impressive, brat. Said Sukuna with a chuckle. No, not brat. Tennyson Ben. Chromastone's and Yuji's eyes widened in surprise. You held yourself fairly well against that cursed spirit, even managing to defeat it alongside this brat. Yuji didn't respond to Sukuna's jab at him as he was far too surprised. And with what I've gathered just recently, that's not even a fraction of your true power. Chromastone didn't respond either, causing Sukuna to grin. Heh heh. Seems I'm correct. Said Sukuna excitedly. Keep getting stronger, Tennyson. As will I, as I look forward to our eventual rematch. Though I'm certain that I could beat you once I'm closer to my full strength, I don't doubt for a moment that it would be quite the battle. Chromastone clenched his fists in response. You can challenge me whenever you want. Anytime, anywhere. I'd never back down from the chance to kick your butt for the second time. Chromastone fired back. I bet. Said Sukuna as he broke into a maniacal laugh. Stay alive until we meet again, Ben Tennyson. And with that, the eye and mouth formed by Sukuna on Yuji's body disappeared. Did you just, began Yuji in astonishment. Get moved up the pecking order to more than just a nuisance by Sukuna. Yeah, I did, said Chromastone sarcastically. And I already know that's an even worse spot to be in. Yuji's expression then changed to one of guilt. Sorry about that. Said a downcast Yuji. You don't have to apologize. It's not your fault," said Chromastone as he placed his right hand on Yuji's left shoulder. "Plus it's not all bad. You've got your arm back." Yuji then raised the restored appendage, and looked at it with awe, causing Chromastone to drop his hand from his shoulder. "Why yeah. I do," said Yuji, slightly stammering as he was still processing being healed by wriggling his right hand lightly. "Feel any different?" asked Chromastone as he put his hands on his waist. "No, it feels normal," replied Yuji as he put his hand down. "That's good considering who healed it," said Chromastone with a smirk. "Now that that's taken care of, let's say we blow this joint," said Chromastone, causing Yuji to nod. Chromastone then raised his left hand up before slamming its palm on the omnitrix symbol on his chest. This caused the familiar flash of green to engulf his body, and once it died down, what stood in his place caused Yuji's eyes to widen in surprise. Standing in the place of Chromastone was a feline-like alien with a black suit-like color scheme, and his hands, legs, chest, and part of his head were colored blue. He had a black mask like fins around his green eyes, a triangle-shaped nose, a thunderbolt-like design down his chest, and a triangle one down his back. He also had spike-like blades on his arms and legs. And finally, on its chest was the omnitrix symbol. "Fast track!" shouted the Citricaya. "Fast track? I thought his name was XLR8. Asked a confused Yuji. "Same powers, different aliens," explained Fast Track before dashing towards the corpses and returning in front of Yuji in less than a second with both corpses in both hands. "Now, hold on to while I hold on to this and you," began Fast Track as he handed the corpse of Tadashi to a surprised Yuji while he held the skeleton of the other corpse in his right hand. He then wrapped his left hand around Yuji's shoulder, holding both him and the skeleton tightly. "And get us out of here." With that, Fast Track sped out of the room in an instant, leaving behind a temporary blue blur from where he once stood. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 4. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Shinobi360 on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.